Welcome to a special Saturday afternoon edition of On Texas Football Recruiting Breakdown, brought to you by Mark Saunders and Allstate Insurance. Guys, you guys were both brave in the cold out there this morning in Austin, and then CJ, you stayed after to find out everything else going on. 5 new offers on the junior day. Some of them, guys, we didn't expect. Some of them we thought might be on offer watch going in. Typical. But all in all, Texas had more than 100 players on campus today. Just an absolutely insane amount of talent showed up at the football facilities at DKR today. But really, I have to say this. I think one of the things that may have taken the show is a defensive lineman coming in out of the portal. If you haven't heard yet, Tioa Leah Savea, a defensive tackle out of Arizona, originally from Las Vegas's Desert Pines, 6'4", 305 pounds, was in the rotation, defensive tackle rotation at Arizona this year. Johnny Nansen, of course, the defensive coordinator at Arizona this year. Now the one of the linebacker coach at Texas immediately goes out and recruits him after Savea hit the portal last night. So it's very obvious Texas trying to make a concerted effort. I've mentioned more than once, Texas wants 2 defensive tackles in the portal. They need 2 defensive tackles in the portal. This could very well be one of them. Washington, where his other coaches have went, is also thought to be involved a little bit here, but we'll wait and see. Texas clearly making him a priority from the outset. Again, Tioa Leah Savea, 6'4", 305 pounds, out of the University of Arizona. He originally signed, by the way, with UCLA out of high school. He arrived on campus. He was expected to arrive on campus today at around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, is my understanding. Savea mentioning his offer and official visit via Twitter this afternoon. Guys, let's go now forward to talking about the junior day. I want to ask you first. My understanding is extremely cold out there with a lot of wind, right? Is that the best way to put it?
Nailed it.
Yeah, pretty accurate.
You guys are both defrosting, I guess. It's interesting. I know how it can be very difficult to get all those guys corralled and to the right places, et cetera. But it sounds like once they got in there, they went to go see the basketball game against Baylor, right? Which seemed like it went very well. I understand they had like a huge section cordoned off for the players, for the prospects and their parents as well. Steve Sarkisian was sitting front row, et cetera. And then they did a number of different things. Blake, you wrote an article on ontexasfootball.com today that basically said after that, several players were introduced to Coach Sark and different ones, and some of them ended up going in for extra amount of time. Some of those that apparently went in for extra amount of time ended up with scholarship offers. At least 5 of them that we know of as we're doing this right now. I'm going to let you, CJ, start with a couple of the guys that you talked to and know that got offered.
Yeah, as you mentioned, 5 guys left campus today with an offer who did not arrive with one. So Texas was busy continuing to recruit the 2025 class. All of the offers in which I am currently of knowledge of, were extended to the 2025 class. Connor Carty, the offensive lineman out of Prosper, received an offer, as did Ryan Foge out of Bridgeland. So Kyle Flood was active with 2 offensive linemen today in the 2025 class. Foge, we actually talked to a little bit afterward. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later, but he was very excited. He was with teammate Jonte Newman, who Texas has been recruiting since last summer as well. So the 2 of them on campus got to share the moment in which he was able to receive his offer. Ricky Stewart, the running back out of Chapel Hill, a little East Texas flair. He already has 6,000 career rushing yards. He told me this past as he was leaving, actually, he's hoping to get up to 9,000. He rushed for 2,800 this past season, as well as 40 touchdowns. He's committed to SMU at the moment, but did say this will be a family conversation in which his recruitment is now fully blown up, and he's got a lot to think about moving forward. Michael Terry out of San Antonio, Alamo Heights area, a true athlete. A lot of people are recruiting him as a wide receiver. He's about 6'2", 190 right now. Big body, big frame, big playmaker as well, received an offer as well. And then the last one that we are aware of is Gus Cordova, the defensive end, long, lengthy arms, wingspan as well, out of Lake Travis. So Texas didn't necessarily have to go too far, but they did want to get to see him on campus again in a controlled environment like we saw today. He showed up in a T-shirt today. Talk about how cold and windy it was.
Blake, I thought it was cold.
That's making me cold. Think about it, Bobby.
So Texas offered 5 guys. Gus Cordova is one of them. The young man from Lake Travis showed up in a T-shirt. You said, I want to ask you this because off camera, when you and I were talking, CJ, you relayed a story about Ricky Stewart, young man out of Tyler Chapel Hill that you just talked about, received an offer from University of Texas. You said that really, really seemed to hit home with him. Tell folks a little bit about that.
Yeah, certainly. I was able to chat and talk and catch up with how, it felt to receive the Texas offer. And immediately he said he had not ever experienced an emotion that he felt whenever the offer came in. It felt like it was something that he had been longing for. He said that Texas was a school that he had really wanted to receive an offer from. At times it felt like he was about to get a little choked up. It was an emotional day, an afternoon I'm sure he won't forget, but certainly a day and a memory, an event that he won't ever forget, and something that certainly hit home for Ricky Stewart again. And we talked about the production, a very talented football player out of East Texas.
I think that's awesome, dude. I really do. Removing Blake out of this, he's got a phone call he's got to take right now because we're still getting phone calls from the recruiting weekend. So we had to pause the video there and let him go out. The thing I want to mention here next and talk to you about, CJ, and I'll get to Blake when he's able to rejoin us. Johnny Nansen and his early impact. There was one guy at least that you said mentioned Nansen to you specifically. Of course, Nansen, the former Arizona defensive coordinator that we said is bringing in Savea, the defensive tackle, but he's also recruiting high school players right now. Give us your thoughts there.
Yeah, Texas had a loaded linebacking group, group of prospects come to campus. That certainly was a headline coming into today, but there was a prospect on the defensive line with some Polynesian ties that certainly had a lot of great things to say about Johnny Nansen and his addition to the Texas staff. Tiki Hola, 2026 defensive lineman out of Bastrop, so not too far down the road from Central Texas, from Austin specifically, had a lot of great things to say about Johnny Nansen. The two sides talked a lot about their Polynesian heritage, where they came from, the community in which is very close-knit. You don't see a lot of in Central Texas. And so there was like instant connection and instant bond that was able to form. We certainly talked about after Nansen's hiring, that was something that is a strength of his ties to the Poly community. You talked about Savea, obviously coming in from Arizona as an official visitor today as well. Tiki Hola is another guy that shares Poly ties. They shared a pretty lengthy conversation that hit home for Tiki Hola. And as we talked about, Texas stopped by Bastrop earlier this week as well. So a lot of interest early on, and Johnny Nansen already making an instant impact for guys even outside of his linebacking position.
Oh, that's interesting. That's good because this is one of the things that was thought that, hey, Texas other than Dwayne Aquina, Texas had never really had anyone on staff with Polynesian or Hawaiian ties before. And so that's a good mix there for Texas, and another way to reach out to more people and bring them into the University of Texas ecosystem, right? So certainly. I think it's tremendous. All right, another thing that I wanted to ask you about, surprise visitors today. It seemed like there were a couple that caught you guys that weren't on any of our lists or anything like that. Give people some names that they can kind of think about and hear about for the first time maybe.
Yeah, Blake and I mentioned it earlier today. Gavin Nix, the 2025 linebacker at IMG Academy, he was a surprise visitor to us, and I believe the entire community as well that covers Texas recruiting. He was quick to acknowledge the Texas former teammates of his at IMG Academy, Jordan Johnson-Rubel, Jarrett Gibson, two guys that he's very fond of. And he also mentioned just how exciting it is that Texas is winning on a national scale as well. He's originally from Tampa, now at Bradenton, Florida at IMG Academy. He made it to campus. Jason Bradford, a 2026 defensive back, specifically corner in my eyes, out of Temple, about 6'2", 6'3", can really move. I've been able to see him in a closed training circuit as well. He can really move. He's a guy that I think is really about to blow up. Holds offers from Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and a few others early on. Connor Vasic, we didn't necessarily have him on our list earlier today, but the family ties that we've mentioned right down the road at Westlake. His older brother Colton was in the 2023 class, was a freshman this past season as well. And then Deshaun Morgan, another local guy from Austin Vandergrift, 6'4", 250 pounds, defensive end with rugby background. How about that? So a little bit of a twist there. He's new to the football game, still getting acclimated, has yet to receive an offer from Texas, but is now on the board in terms of Texas being aware of him specifically. He's a guy to keep a close eye on because that frame and that movement, hard to find. Vandergrift is able to produce one big-time trench guy. It feels like each cycle, and Morgan is that next guy up.
All right, I got you. Before we go any further, I got some more questions for you here, CJ. But before I go any further, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. Mark Saunders sponsors the Recruiting Breakdown, Texas Allstate agent. And Mark Saunders is the only insurance agent you need to help keep tabs on protection for all your stuff. Everything from your home, car, boat, motorcycle, RV, ATV. Just call Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. Are you in good hands? With more than 35 years of experience, you will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders. Give him a call, 512-218-8571. CJ, what about some other big name guys that were supposed to be on campus? Have you confirmed any of their whereabouts? I know Jordan Davison, for example, the running back out of Mater Dei was definitely. Any other big names like that?
Yeah, obviously, five-star Dorian Brew was a guy that we had circled coming into this weekend. Texas did visit him. Steve Sarkisian did go down to his high school late this week to see, to really check in and kind of double up on the visits with Brew. He did make it in. We can confirm that Dorian Brew did make it to campus. We did not see him originally in the check-in, kind of a rival line, but that did not mean he did not make it to campus. We can confirm he is on campus. That's a big one. There was a loose commitment date for January 24th. A lot of momentum right now points to Ohio State. Texas, obviously, as I mentioned, is doubling up on getting FaceTime with Dorian Brew, the five-star out of Conroe. That's a big recruitment. It's a good cornerback crop in the state of Texas this year. Dorian Brew is amongst the top. He's a top player. Ohio State has momentum. Texas is chipping away right now, so very important to get him on campus at the time being.
Another position that you talked about, linebacker a little bit, and how Bo Barnes made it in, Riley Pettijohn, Gavin Nix, the young man out of IMG, some other guys as well. And then you also talk about edge recruiting. That actually, we only had 3 guys prior to today, but clearly more than that showed up, and another one got an offer. How did that end up looking like today?
Yeah, it certainly felt like, on paper at least, the edge position might be a little bit low in numbers. I don't think that was necessarily the case. We just talked about Gus Cordova earning an offer from Lake Travis. His length stands off the page. You just mentioned it off stream, Bobby. That was the number one thing that jumped out to you. I said the same thing as well. Deshaun Morgan out of Vandergrift certainly is in that kind of tweener phase right now. He's about 250 pounds right now. He can certainly move out to edge as well. But the guys that we were aware of coming into this junior day, specifically Cameron Morgan, had a really positive things to say about Texas. Off the bat, he was thrilled that Texas is winning at a national level. He said that Texas is now firmly in what he considers to be his top 5. He's now at South Oak Cliff, having moved from Red Oak. So that's a little bit of a move. Texas has familiarity with Billy Walton, Malik Muhammad from 2 years ago. From South Oak Cliff, obviously a hot spot for recruiting as well. Kamora Morgan is now in the fold there. Got to talk with Pete Kowski on the visit. Good things there. And then the other one I wanted to mention was Chad Woodford. He visited back in July, really gushed over being able to watch former Summer Creek teammate Kelvin Banks run the show in a practice and a simulated workout for Texas over the summer. He made it back. Texas was recently included in a top 9 of his, so he's starting to trim down things already. Again, Texas is certainly in the mix there. They were amongst the leaders back in July, and I expect them to be amongst the top moving forward after a strong visit again today.
Let me ask you a couple more questions here about a couple of players that were offered today that we didn't really we hit on a little bit, but maybe not enough. Ryan Foge out of Bridgeland, the new offer. He's teammates with Jonte Newman, a guy that had already been offered, but Foge turned up, and I saw you guys with the pictures earlier today, and they were just, impressive to say the least. Talk about him and Connor Carty, the two offensive linemen that were offered.
Yeah, Ryan Foji, you talk about impressive. Whew. And this is someone that is still relatively new to the offensive tackle position. Funny enough, Bridgeland, you can probably pencil them into having the best offensive line tackle duo in the state of Texas, right next to Jonte Newman as well. Them being in the same class on the same offensive line is spectacular. But Foji specifically was on JV a year ago in which he was still playing defensive line. And to turn around with 1 year of film as a junior at right tackle and earn offers from across the country speaks to the level of athleticism and potential that teams are seeing in him. Clearly, earning an offer from Kyle Flood today meant a lot to him as well. He was blown away by the facilities. He mentioned the weight room was the number one thing that was that stood out to him, which is funny when you consider just how much he has already progressed physically. He's looking at what he can do at the college ranks as well. So great athleticism, can move very well, and very lengthy arms, exactly what you want in a true tackle prospect. That's Ryan Foji. Connor Carty are also out of the DFW area, the North DFW area, out of Prosper. Tremendous film. He's has some of the best junior film that you will see from the state of Texas. Can move very well, physical, and moves bodies in the run game as well. That's something that we love to see in terms of offensive linemen developing and evaluations. Connor Carty moves people. He's a body mover and still has great pass sets as well. So a lot to like with what Kyle Flood is looking at in the state of Texas. It's already a very deep offensive line class, and 2 more offers going out to in-state guys just goes to show just how deep this group is.
I think it's good news for Texas, because Longhorns, they love to be big up front, and if there's more of them, more power to Kyle Flood and Steve Sarkisian in that regard. All right, Blake, thanks for coming back in. I know you had to take that phone call.
Yes.
When recruits' parents call or recruits call, you need to take those. Okay, that's part of your job of being a reporter, buddy. All right, reporter. Hey, the question I have for you: your big takeaways from today. And what you saw and the guys that you talked to.
I think one of the biggest takeaways from talking to parents is, and I put this over there on ontexasfootball.com, is the energy the coaches had. It was noticed by a lot of parents. And one parent, told me that it was unmatched from anywhere else that they have been in the country. And this is, coming from a kid's parent that has been to numerous in-school states, along with some out-of-school states as well. And I mean, everybody raved about the coaching staff. I was kind of wondering, with the cold, how that would affect things. But I mean, everyone seemed to love their time. Every kid I've talked to loved their time there. One thing I did want to mention that I just got off the phone with is the DeSoto kids. And it sounds like all 3 of them, Sal Reyes, the safety, Byron Washington, the offensive lineman, and then, of course, Booby Feaster, the 2027 wide receiver, all 3 of them did have personal meetings with Sark after it was all over with. And interestingly enough, Bobby and CJ, They told Booby that they see him as a Julio Jones 2.0, basically. That was their comparison to him. They said, we want to use you in that way, like we used him in Alabama. He also met in depth with Coach Banks as well. And so, it sounded like it was a really productive day for the DeSoto kids, which obviously Texas has kind of a pipeline going there and needs to continue that pipeline with as much talent that comes in and out of that program. But I mean, all in all, I think the biggest piece of the day, because I think we all wondered, how do you balance 100+ kids in such a short amount of time? And it sounds like they nailed it. I mean, to me, that's bigger than anything, just about.
Yeah, I've been a part of those and seen those happen before. And sometimes, they just got to get 5 minutes with the coaches, and then they get into the feel and movement of things and how things work. They understand how coaches address other people and address groups, which I think is always a big feeling for a young player. I think that you guys are going to dig up more and more stuff as we go forward. So I don't want to spend too much more time tonight. I want it to be a little shorter video for this evening, especially since Tioa Leah Savea is still on his official visit to Texas, we believe right now. We may have some more information on that either late tonight or tomorrow morning as well. But my point being, look, this is supposed to accomplish an idea what a junior day really is supposed to accomplish is an introductory or an introduction of sorts to your program. And if coaches are doing a good job and parents and players are receptive and they're then giving you good feedback like that, Blake, and you, CJ, that's what's supposed to be happening. I mean, that's what this is all about. So it's interesting. No commitments as of right now, and not public ones anyways, right? And so we were wondering whether or not Sark would push for that. It's clear he didn't. He just wanted to put his hat in the ring, right, and make sure that he was playing. He's always patient. That's one thing that I think you guys and I have to agree with. And he's always patient unless he's not, though. Like this defensive lineman from the University of Arizona, like Isaiah Bond, like Amari Niblack, like Silas Bolden. Unless he's ready to go and there needs to be a decision made, he's willing to take his time and develop a relationship with those guys. So I think that's good stuff. All right, Blake and CJ, thank you all so much. We'll have more not only here on Texas Football, but also on ontexasfootball.com. Please join us. It's free to join the community, hang out, talk with us, ask questions, communicate with one another. Make it your home for Texas football going forward. For CJ Vogel and Blake Munroe, I'm Bobby Burton. This has been On Texas Football Recruiting Breakdown, brought to you by Mark Saunders and our friends at Allstate Insurance.